Hello, my name is Christopher Renstrom. I'm the creator of rulingplanets.com and Christopher Renstrom Astrology. And I want to welcome you to my April Astrological Forecast. The theme for this month is Find Your Own Way. So, what does find your own way mean? What I wanted to address here were the twin impulses of wanting to take the lead, of wanting to leap forward. After all, we're in the beginning of April, and this is the zodiac sign of Aries. And Aries is the zodiac sign that rules over the spring equinox, the beginning of the agricultural year. So, what do we expect from our beginnings? Well, oftentimes we might think of quick start, a fast start, a rush start. Maybe if you ran track in school, you used to adopting the position of about to race and then suddenly bursting out of the starting gate. Or maybe that was also what you did if you studied swimming. Or if you were dancing, you made an extraordinary dramatic entrance onto the stage. So this idea of quick starts, urgent starts, are impulses and feelings that are often associated to the zodiac sign of Aries. And during this time, when the sun is in the zodiac sign of Aries, we're expecting people to get to the point, to make fast decisions, and to not slow anything down. Well, the first planet that we're dealing with in the month of April is a Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde. What does it mean when Mercury turns retrograde? Well, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the term Mercury retrograde. It's one of those planetary aspects that's really made the transition from astrological circles to Main Street talking and references. People will be like, oh my goodness, Mercury is in retrograde. Oh, what am I going to do? So we all know that when Mercury is retrograde, that's going to be a time of building frustration and exasperation because Mercury is an extremely fast-moving planet. It's not the fastest moving planet in astrology, that's the moon. But after the moon, Mercury is the next fastest. Plus, Mercury is the planet that orbits closest to the sun. So Mercury is basically a planet, like the moon in a way, responsible for our day-to-day lives. The moon rules over our habits and our memories, our routines, and Mercury rules over the way that we negotiate our day-to-day activities. Where the moon is more habitual, and this is when I do this, or this is how I place the food on my plate, or this is the time when I go and practice yoga, Mercury is in charge of the to-do list. These are the things that I need to get done today. And so Mercury not only makes a to-do list for the activities that we expect to accomplish for the day, but Mercury has already worked out a way to go about and do it. This is something that you'll see with people who are born under the sign of Mercury, and that is people born under Gemini and Virgo. So when Mercury is moving forward in the sky, that rules a time when we go about our activities and we get things done pretty much on time. And if we don't get them done on the time that we planned on getting them done, that's okay, because that was sort of like in the plan anyway. Okay, so Mercury is responsible, as I said, for our uninterrupted day-to-day activities. So, what happens when Mercury turns retrograde? Two things. A planet turning retrograde, according to ancient astrologers, described a period of time when the planet was acting contrary to its normal nature. So if Mercury is about organizing your day and getting things done, when it's moving backwards, your day suddenly is disorganized, or you're not getting things done as quickly as you would have hoped or expected. So these are the things that happen during the time that Mercury is retrograde. Mercury basically throws a monkey wrench into the workings of our day-to-day life. Our transactions do not move smoothly. There's always some kind of complication. Maybe the item is unavailable. Someone else bid for it, and they're outbidding us, or they snuck away with it. We are frustrated in our desires to own and to purchase. Also, what can happen when Mercury is moving backwards in the sky is that merchandise, which was promised to be in top condition, might end up showing up broken or soiled or spoiled or ruined in some sort of way. The merchandise isn't what was promised to us, and there's something about it that is ruined, or maybe it's mistaken altogether. Also, you want to be careful of doing things like, for instance, upgrading your computer or backing up files on your computer, making sure that you're up on the latest viruses. You want to make sure that your car is functioning correctly. If there's something about the car that seems a little bit off, go and check it out immediately before it becomes a real nightmare. And also those day-to-day appliances that you depend on, like your phone or your coffee maker or the glasses that you need to read. You want to make sure that you put them back where you remember them during the period of time when Mercury is retrograde, because the glasses may be misplaced along with keys, the coffee machine may stop working, or the phone suddenly goes dead. These are things that often take place during a Mercury retrograde, because, as I said, Mercury is not only about items that you've purchased or want to purchase, but it also rules communication. And it also rules those machines that we rely upon, like hair dryers and coffee makers, to get our day up and going. So when they go on the fritz, this can become very exasperating and this can become very frustrating. So, what is the key to managing a Mercury retrograde? The first thing is to keep your sense of humor handy. If something goes belly up or goes on the fritz, instead of like, "Rrr," I mean, it's going to be Mercury retrograde in Aries. So you get to be like, all right, that's allowed. Aries is a very temperamental and angry sort of sign. It's Mars ruled, after all. Also have a sort of sense of humor about it. It's basically Mercury reminding you when it's retrograde that maybe it's time to buy a new coffee maker. Maybe it's time to take the car into the shop. Maybe it's time to go and have the phone checked out or refreshed in some sort of way. Because when we're used to our day-to-day living, we're used to things like when we're on a browser leaving a million tabs open, and because we're going to get back and read that tab one day, and we don't think that that might be draining the computer. So Mercury retrograde is kind of a little reminder that, you can have the smooth functioning of your day, but the smooth functioning of your day also depends on making adjustments. And those are the things that Mercury is responsible for. And those are the things that Mercury can remind us during the time that it is moving backwards in the sky. The other thing that you want to do when Mercury is retrograde is schedule an extra 2 weeks for any sort of deadline, because there are going to be complications. There are all of a sudden going to be obstacles in your path, or the goalposts have been shifted around, or something's going to take what should have been a no-brainer and turn it into a major headache. Be proactive, schedule an extra 2 weeks connected to a deadline. Be ready to deal with things all of a sudden going belly up, and you will get through this period pretty much no worse for wear. Now, Mercury goes retrograde on April 1st. So believe me, that's going to be one hell of an April Fool's Day. It also is a planet that's connected to misleading information or someone not being completely straightforward about all of those things. So whatever information exchanges are taking place in the first couple of weeks of April, you want to be a bit skeptical. You want to make sure that you've got all the information. You want to go and double check, maybe triple check things before signing on. That's going to be very hard to do with Mercury in Aries, because Mercury in Aries tends to be very urgent and very fast. Finally, Mercury comes out of retrograde on April 25th, and the signs that will be most affected by Mercury's retrograde will be Aries, Gemini, Leo, Virgo, and Sagittarius. On April 5th, Venus enters the zodiac sign of Aries. This is a completely different energy that will be taking place on this day. Venus leaves Pisces, the zodiac sign of her exaltation, and enters fiery Aries. Venus in Aries is what I call a telenovela Venus. You can't help but be a magnet for trouble when you have Venus in the zodiac sign of Aries. This obviously is going to impact everyone who was born with Venus and Aries in their horoscope. This is what we call a Venus return. Venus is returning to the zodiac sign that it was in when you were born. And it will be, as I said, a telenovela Venus. Telenovelas, for those of you who may not be familiar with them, are these amazing Latin American soap operas, okay, where people love powerfully, deeply, and in all kinds of outrageous, dramatic situations. So when you have Venus and Aries in your chart, you're very familiar with finding yourself in compromising situations, tight corners, and cliffhangers. These happen with the frequency, maybe even more than the frequency of a lead in a soap opera. If Venus in Aries is going to impact your horoscope, and it will if you are a fire or an air sign, then you may find yourself attracting this kind of energy into your life. All of a sudden, it's like, why is everything a drama? Why is everything pitched on the brink of falling over into the abyss? Why is everything so, fueled and loud and on the edge of the seat? Okay. And this is what happens when Venus is traveling through the zodiac sign of Aries. So the passionate fling or the fabulous wipeout, so what? It's worth it. It's worth it if your passions and romance came to the fore. You never apologize for your feelings if you have Venus moving through the zodiac sign of Aries. Now, if Venus in Aries is not an energy that you're used to, and it is bringing people into your life who are like this, you may be attracting people who are very passionate or into the fabulous wipeout or not wanting to apologize for their feelings. And so this can be maybe very seductive, or this can be very bewildering, or this can be very frightening, if someone is coming into your life with this kind of energy. Venus in Aries often brings a lot of sort of psychological baggage with it. It's like a soap opera, okay? There's always a secret or a bust up or a treacherous betrayal or a difficult passage that's in some character's life. Or two characters, they're brought together because they're sexy and romantic, but it's a soap opera. So the writers of the soap opera have to plant some kind of complication or bombshell or secret that's going to be found out, or, a misunderstood betrayal, something along those lines. Well, these are the things that you will be experiencing with Venus moving through the zodiac sign of Aries. It can be romantic, but it can also deal with business partnerships or business associations as well. You might find yourself dealing with a client who's out of control, a backer who likes to take risks, someone who has worked from one company after another, and they're nothing but a hot mess. Okay, so these things can take place in your life as well. If you're a fire or an air sign, you might be kind of like, well, that's kind of fun. That could be a lot of fun. So you might be sort of like, oh, into it. But if you're a water and earth sign, you might be like, oh boy, this is looking like a hot mess, like I want to avoid and not sort of take on and get involved with. The thing with Venus and Aries, because again, it's in a Mars ruled sign, breakups and makeups are equally important. So there's always fight, there's always struggle, there's always strife. That kind of belongs to Aries, but it's brought out more so because Aries is, as I said, a Mars ruled sign. A Mars ruled sign refers to the fact that Mars is named after the Roman god of war. So when you're in a sign which is named after the Roman god of war, you fight for things that you want. And fighting shows that you care. And what you need to know is that if you're living this energy, then the breaking up and the making up and the breaking up and the making up, this is the way that you stoke the flames of your relationship, your passion. As I said, this can come out romantically, where you're just like, oh, I have to have you. Oh, I have to have you. And you just go at it 24/7. Or it can even come out in creative or professional relationships, collaborations. If you're familiar with creative collaborations, there can be a lot of arguing and there can be a lot of fighting. And the arguing and fighting isn't to be the best at, but the arguing and fighting is like, no, this is a good idea. No, this is a good idea. Your idea sucks. My idea. Okay. But what you're doing is that you're collaborating, and out of that, like fighting and combating is going to come a fantastic idea. And so collaboration, remember co-labor, it means to labor together, to work together. It also means to fight together. And so this can be a little bit horrifying to people who don't like fighting, and Venus really doesn't like fighting. She is named after the Roman goddess of love, beauty, and peace, but here her disposition is more Amazonian. The signs that will be most affected, most impacted with Venus being in Aquarius will be Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Leo, Libra, Sagittarius, and Aquarius. These are the signs that will pretty much know how to work with it. The only reason I'm sort of throwing Taurus into that grouping there is that Taurus is a Venus-ruled sign. So Venus Aries, because Venus is Taurus's ruling planet, they will be feeling this energy, whether they want to be dealing with this energy or not. The solar eclipse in Aries takes place on April 8th. Solar eclipses are extremely dramatic events in astrology. This is the period of time when the moon comes in front of the sun and blocks its rays and lights from our vision here on Earth. Oftentimes, these solar eclipses aren't physically witnessed. They're just simply timed, and we know that at some point in the world or someplace in the world that they're taking place and that they're visible. But this one is particularly dramatic because it will be visible in North America. So you can't help but notice that the sun is darkening at the time of the eclipse. Eclipses are most powerful in those parts of the world where it is visible, where it can be witnessed. Eclipses are powerful because they always are connected to a radical change in life direction that's taking place. It's almost like something which has been going along at a certain pace is all of a sudden sped up. I like to think of a solar eclipse as being a rectification. Imagine that you're driving down the freeway and you've got Siri on or some sort of audible audio device that's telling you the directions. You're on and you're listening to it. And let's say you're maybe in the furthest lane to the left as you're driving down the freeway and you're trying to find this location. And maybe you're even in a bit of a hurry. All of a sudden, your guiding software announces you need to take the next exit. And you look up and you see that the next exit is right there, right to your right. So you're looking through the windshield and you see that it's right to the right. And you're like, oh my goodness, I need to take that exit right now. And so you go, you turn your car and cross over the lanes and everyone's honking and you go to the off ramp, make your exit. Now, let me assure all of you, this is not the way that I drive on the freeway. But what I wanted to do with that example is show that all of a sudden eclipses can be connected to the I've got to go there right now feeling, all right? Because the moon has blocked the light of the sun itself. So this is like a blind impulse, a sudden impulse, and it needs to be done now. And this is accelerated, made more so because it's taking place in the zodiac sign of Aries. The sun is exalted in the zodiac sign of Aries, meaning it is the most celebrated. Okay, so the sun in Aries, anyone born with sun in Aries, the idea of I have a purpose in life, and that's to be the best person that I can possibly be. This is infused in the cosmic DNA of anyone born under the zodiac sign of Aries. This is what gives them their youth. Even decades later in their life, they still have a young person's way of looking at things. This is what gives them their fervor, and this is what gives them their heroism. This is the sign that will go running into the burning building to rescue the baby while everyone else is on their cell phones pointing. Aries is born to take action. It's an action-packed type of zodiac sign. So the sun is already exalted in the sign of Aries. It's exalted in the sign of Aries because the sun is committed to being the best that I could possibly be in the zodiac sign of Aries. The eclipse is taking place at 19 degrees Aries. According to Ptolemy, there are certain degrees of the zodiac that themselves are exalted. So the sun's already exalted in the zodiac sign of Aries, but the eclipse takes place at 19 Aries, which is the exalted degree of Aries. So this is promising an impact, a very, very dramatic impact. So this solar eclipse for people born under Aries may push them in dramatically new directions, unexpectedly or quicker or more urgently than they were expecting. And then they sort of have to take the lead on that. For people born under Taurus, you may find yourself all of a sudden thrown into a very different situation than you thought you were going to be taking over, maybe in a financial or business context. With people born under Gemini, you may find yourself all of a sudden thrown into a difficult situation dealing with your interrelationships, dealing with friends or people who know you, in which there's a friend that is having a problem, and you may be enlisted in having to go and talk to that friend who's having a problem in some way. And you're like, why does it have to be me? And they're like, because, they really trust you. So friends may be pushing you to go and talk to the person who's having some problems there. If you're a Cancer, you may be dealing with superior issues dealing with a boss or a superior, someone who's in charge, in which you may have to address that you don't think that they're heading in the right direction, that things should be heading in. And you may have to be the person to go and tell them that. If you're a Leo, Leos don't have a problem being in a leadership position. Okay. So if you're a Leo, you're suddenly in the leadership position as a result of this solar eclipse. It's about time that I'm in this leadership position. Leos may actually find themselves suddenly in a leadership position as a result of this solar eclipse. If you're Virgo, you may find yourself out of sync with the person who's in charge. Maybe they're coming in and sort of changing the way that you do things, and you really don't like that. Or you may be in a position where you're constantly cleaning up after them. And so this may become an issue. If you're Libra, you may be dealing with someone who wants out of a relationship. And no sooner do they say that they want out of a relationship than they want back in. So there might be a sort of like coming together, going apart, these sorts of things that's taking place. And if that's the case, this eclipse gives you the opportunity to say, you know what? I think your decision to be out of the relationship was a good decision. Bye. So if you're a Scorpio, you might all of a sudden find something that was beyond your reach, something you might have been a little bit obsessed with, something that you felt like you could never have or own or possess, suddenly available. It's suddenly there. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, do I really want this? Like, what does this mean? This is going to change everything. The solar eclipse Aries can suddenly sort of turn the tables on a Scorpio, where they have always seen themselves fighting really hard to get something. All of a sudden they get it. And that could pose a whole new set of questions and problems. Sagittarius, this is a marvelous solar eclipse for you. You can be taken right directly to where you want to go. So if you've been planning on going and traveling to a certain country, a certain place in the world, all of a sudden you're able to do it. You may find yourself on that train, that plane, or in that automobile. But more than that, you may find yourself really connecting to a direction in your life, that all of a sudden you've taken that first step down a new road or a new path, and it's quickening. It's taking you very quickly to where it is that you want to go. And this could be very exciting, and this could be very thrilling. If you are a Capricorn, you may find yourself on the wrong side of that authority conflict, where someone is maybe assailing your authority or questioning your ability. And so you might be kind of like all of a sudden like, wait, what's going on here? And you may find yourself having maybe to quell a revolt and maybe stand your ground against people who are questioning your authority or questioning your ability. And that might be very new and a little bit troubling taking place. The solar eclipse could also indicate changes in your family status. Sometimes that can be a kid going off to school or the entrance of a new member of the family, either two-legged or four-legged variety. And it could also maybe be associated to a move. This eclipse for Capricorn is going to be a little bit of a grab bag. If you're an Aquarius, this is an accelerant energy. This is an exciting energy. That eclipse all of a sudden opens up access to getting things done the way that you wanted them done and doing them quickly. Complications may be removed, hurdles may be removed, and you could find yourself on the fast track instead of the wait and see, or maybe one of these days tracks. So this can be an extraordinary accelerant for Aquarius. And then if you're a Pisces, you may find yourself all of a sudden face to face with an action that needs to be taken now. This may deal with finances in some way, and you may find yourself faced with an action that's very urgent. It needs to be taken now. You might find yourself wanting to avoid or put it off. But remember, this eclipse is taking place in Aries, so the urgency will be compelling and undeniable. And so, as a Pisces, you might find yourself having to take action very quickly, not being completely convinced it's the right way to go, but needing to go and take that action immediately. So, those might be different ideas that come up as a result of the solar eclipse in Aries. On April 10th, Mars forms a conjunction to Saturn in the zodiac sign of Pisces. This is a beleaguered type of combination. You may feel that there are too many people in your life that are creating problems, particularly the ones you spoke up for, the ones you vouched for, or the ones that you are financially supporting. There's this feeling that they are always in another crisis, they're always in another emergency, they're always having another problem. And you want to see them get over it. You want to see them get through it. You want to stop paying for their delinquency in some way or making up excuses for why they haven't shown up or why they're absent. Before you give them the lecture, I want you to ask yourself, how much of this is really a problem that they're having, or how much of this is a form of negative attention? Negative attention is still attention, and negative attention is better than no attention at all. So, what might be happening here is that they're in a place in their lives right now that they're not happy with, and they're expressing this, and they don't know what to do to get out of this predicament. They don't know what to do to get out of this rut that they find themselves in. And this period of time when Mars is conjunct Saturn, it's a challenging period of time because it's not a period of time that's going to be solved with coming up with the right answer or the right solution. What Pisces is asking of you is to love unconditionally. And sometimes people need love the most when they deserve it the least. And that's what I would strongly encourage you to think about during this time that Mars is conjunct Saturn. People probably are the least deserving of your love and your support and your fidelity, but this is when they need it the most. What's needed here isn't tough love. What's needed here is love. It's your ability to love when things look most discouraging, which is the beautiful virtue of Pisces. You don't need the answer. You don't need to force them into something. You just come from that place, and that person's soul will hear you, and that person's soul will respond to you. They won't solve their problems overnight, but at least be in a place where they're willing to hear what you have to say if it comes from a profound and loving place. The signs that will be most affected by this conjunction will be Aries, Cancer, Scorpio, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. We have two things happening on April 19th. On April 19th, the Sun enters the zodiac sign of Taurus, and on April 19th, Mars in Pisces forms a sextile to Jupiter and then Uranus, both in the zodiac sign of Taurus. This is fantastic news for people born under Earth signs. Going through the fiery gambit is always a bit of a difficulty for people born under Earth. There's all of this heat, there's all of this impulse, there's all of this suddenness, this urgency, this demand for action being taken, and this really goes against the Earth signs' demeanor. Earth signs like to move in a slower pace, they like to be more careful about their approach, and they like to be more studied about the options that they are entertaining. The Sun enters the zodiac sign of Taurus, and so this immediately brings down the temperature in the room that we've been experiencing with the Sun moving through Aries. If we compare this to the agricultural year, the seeds are planted and sprouting when the Sun is in Aries, and in Taurus is when the plants emerge. Okay, so they've gone from that beginning sprout that is in a delicate place to a plant which is gaining more and more strength and taking up more and more room in the flower bed. Putting down roots and establishing place and space is very Taurian. And as you could imagine, if you're a Taurus, Virgo, or Capricorn, which are the earth signs, this is a welcome change in events. We also have on April 19th, Mars forming a sextile to Jupiter and Uranus. Now, this Mars-Jupiter-Uranus sextile is going to be particularly beneficial for people born under water and earth signs. If you've been feeling like a project or an enterprise that you've been working on has been adrift, if you feel like it hasn't been given the priority that it needs to have, that it's been left to languish, maybe you've even languished with it or left it to languish, this quickening energy that the Jupiter and Uranus can bring to the Mars in Pisces is going to be very beneficial. Now, what that basically means is that anything that's been on the back burner will suddenly be moved onto the front burner, or something that's been sort of like left to languish. All of a sudden, there's attention and focus that's going to be put on it. And in connection to that, there will be a due date or deadline that appears with it as well. So this is going to be connected with at last. Think of it almost like you've been on a dinghy at sea and you've sent up SOSs and you've been sort of like, getting by. At last, someone has seen you, someone is hailing you, and you are now going to be brought forward. A last minute change in a policy or the way that things have been done. And this is something that's going to benefit you right now. Now, this shift in policy, or maybe it's even a reversal of an official position, this is not only going to give you the recognition and the support that you have been wanting, but it's going to make things much more of a priority, not only for people that you're working with, but also a priority for you as well. This isn't the time to slow down the energy or to be like, well, let me go back and revisit. This is the time when all of a sudden you are on the front burner. All of a sudden there are all eyes on you. And all of a sudden you have the ability to bring something in for a landing, or to realize an aim or an ambition, or to finalize a project or enterprise. So no more doddering, no more wondering when it will ever be. I want you to move with this energy. And if you move with this energy, things should turn out nicely for you, probably around April 29th. The signs that are most affected will be Aries, Taurus, Cancer, Virgo, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. Now, a couple of you out there might be like, Aries and Aquarius, where'd they come from? Aries, because it's a Mars sextile to Jupiter and Uranus, and Mars is the ruling planet of Aries. And Aquarius, because Mars is sextiling Jupiter and Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius. And now what I'm thinking as I'm giving that list, I'm going to throw on in Sagittarius, because Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter just like Pisces is. So these are the signs that all of a sudden something that's been languished or is hung out on the back burner, all of a sudden is recognized, it's getting the attention that it deserves, and you're moving very quickly towards fruition, which should take place on April 29th. April 20th is the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. This is a big deal in astrology. We haven't seen a conjunction between Jupiter and Uranus in a number of years, and they will be conjoining in the zodiac sign of Taurus. I call this the don't throw the baby out with the bathwater conjunction. Now, whenever you're dealing with Uranus in a potentially difficult or challenging aspect, that can be a square and an opposition. It can also, interestingly enough, be a conjunction as well. These are what I sort of call the make or break angles. Either things are going to come together in a wonderful way, or they're going to break down in a not so wonderful way. Uranus is the planet of revolution and change. Whenever it's powerful in a chart, it basically can show the overthrow of what has been a traditional situation, what has been conventional wisdom, what has been the status quo. Uranus is famous for coming into your life and knocking over the game board and sending all the pieces flying. This is what Uranus does. It can introduce a sudden upset. it can introduce a sudden reversal, it can introduce a sudden revolt. So, when you see a Uranus Jupiter conjunction, this may be upsetting the Jupiterian hold on its governing forces in the horoscope right now. That Jupiter passes under the rays of Uranus, and Uranus, being a modern planet, usually is seen as being far superior, stronger, more powerful in strength than Jupiter. So, this could be associated to a sudden, unexpected, or surprise upset or reversal. So that's the break part. It's either going to be the breakdown or the breakthrough. That could happen. We could experience a sudden collapse with this conjunction. However, I'm of a more optimistic view when I look at these two planets coming together in the same place at the same time in the sky. And this is why I call this the don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. They are both coming together in the zodiac sign of Taurus. Taurus is an earth sign, and it has a tendency to bring down the temperature and to cool things, and it will always fight for stability. Now, Jupiter in astrology is often associated to good fortune and higher purpose. A lot of people sort of understand it as an expanding type of energy. I regard Jupiter as a governing type of energy. Its association to governments, its association to institutions, to the things that govern our lives. That can be understood in a way of ruling our lives or telling us what to do, but government can also be the way that our life is managed. Jupiter has an impulse to reform. Jupiter has an impulse to rehabilitate. And so, what this Jupiter Uranus conjunction may present is a choice opportunity. It may present a choice opportunity for you to introduce reform or rehabilitative plan in order to salvage a situation, maybe even get rid of a lot of unwanted aspects of the situation, break it down to its core being, and then restore it or to work with it from that place. Again, I'm sort of reminded of gardening. A lot of times you have to cut away the dead wood or maybe even cut back some of the branches that are sprouting in order to make the plant stronger, in order to make it more vigorous. And so, this idea of pruning or rehabilitating or reforming may be something that's on the docket. I'm also optimistic, more heading towards the reforming, rehabilitative side of this Jupiter Uranus conjunction, because this will be followed by a Sun Jupiter conjunction in Taurus on May 18th, and then a Jupiter Neptune sextile on May 23rd. May 18th is the Sun and Jupiter together at the same place in the sky. Jupiter and Neptune form a sextile at the last degree of their respective signs. So Jupiter will be at the last degree of Taurus. Neptune will be at the last degree of Pisces. They will form this sextile on May 23rd. Jupiter and Neptune are the two rulers of the zodiac sign Pisces, the traditional and the modern ruler. It's an extremely rare sextile, one that we're only going to see once in our lifetimes. And I think that that's the reason why I would see this conjunction as moving in a much more positive and a constructive light. On April 23rd, there will be a full moon in Scorpio. This signals an end to a long, drawn-out emotional chapter. It won't be easy saying goodbye, but you need to. This may be a temporary split. Maybe someone has to go away for work or go away to attend to family affairs for a period of time. And even though they can come back and see you, they're not going to be a part of your regular day life, or you're not going to be a part of their regular day life for a period of time. So it's a time of partings. It's a time of saying goodbye. Or it may be something more permanent, where you really are parting company with someone, or things have come to a close in a relationship or an association. The full moon in Scorpio, particularly, can rule over these sorts of partings. And as I said, it can have a very deep and profound and painful impact on you. But because of the arrangement of the planets in the sky right now, you're not really going to have the opportunity to do that. You may feel like it's impossible to be there for others right now, that you feel hurt, or that you're in a period of mourning, or a period that you want to be by yourself. But what the stars show is that others need you now, that you are very much on call. Others need you right now, and that you can't really leave them in the lurch. And so, what you may discover in this period of time when you most don't want to be connected to people, that there is a necessity or demand that you be there for people, you may discover in being there for them that you actually end up being there for yourself. That where if you had retreated or drawn back, you may have gone into a very dark or immovable place, emotionally speaking, and that it's the fact that you can't leave people in the lurch that keeps that watery energy circulating. And so, in being there for you, you're there for yourself. And it's not that you're getting over the pain, but you're recognizing the pain in other people's lives, reflecting the pain in your own, and that may actually bring a more comforting and supportive place, a better place for you to be psychically than isolating yourself would have done. The signs that will be most affected by the full moon in Scorpio will be Taurus, Cancer, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. April 29th is another day where we have two things taking place at the same time. We have Venus entering the zodiac sign of Taurus, and we have Mars forming a conjunction to Neptune in the zodiac sign of Pisces. Both are rather peace-loving. Venus entering Taurus will mark a significant change in the disposition of Venus. She goes from fiery Aries, where she was in detriment and under the rulership of Mars, to her own sign. Venus in Taurus is what I call a relaxed, fit Venus. She's completely comfortable here. Have you ever heard the phrase, beauty is in the eye of the beholder? What that sets up is the idea of that what someone thinks is beautiful is the person who is looking at it. So to be a beholder is to almost be a slave to beauty. Like, you're so beautiful and I'm beholding you and I will do whatever you want. Venus in Taurus is always beauty. So in other words, what happens is others behold the Venus who is in this sign. When you have Venus in Taurus, you're just naturally beautiful. It doesn't matter if you fit the idea of what beautiful is supposed to be or not. People find you intrinsically, automatically beautiful. What this does in changing the dynamic of relationships and associations with Venus and Taurus is that everything takes on a more relaxed approach. It's not under that kind of fiery, incendiary, urgent quality that was running the Venus in Aries. Everything slows down. It's easier to communicate. Things aren't a big hassle. If anything, if someone is trying to turn something into a scene or make it more difficult, the pulse of the room is going to be along the lines of, why are you making it more difficult? Why don't you take a chill pill? Let's be more relaxed. And of course, the signs that will be most affected by Venus traveling through the zodiac sign of Taurus will be Taurus, Cancer, Virgo, and Capricorn. April 29th, as I mentioned, is also when Mars forms a conjunction to Neptune. Now, when Mars forms a conjunction to Neptune in the zodiac sign of Pisces, this is a period of time in which Mars loses its resolve. Grievances lose their shape. Vendettas, those slights, those insults aren't the big deal that they once were. The timbre changes, the mindset changes, the soul set changes when it comes under the rays of Neptune. This becomes a period of time when the Mars is less forceful and it can become more receptive to other people's points of view. It can become more open to ideas and opinions that aren't in agreement with your own. You're not going to fight for your stand as vigorously as you would have before. You soften in your Marsiness. You might even become more accommodating during this period of time. And who knows? You may discover that there's more colors in the universe than black and white. This is a good time to forgive and to forget. And this is a time when you may be willing to let bygones be bygones. This may even be a time where you welcome back a prodigal friend or you restore a precious relationship. The signs that will be most affected will be Aries, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And finally, Mars enters the zodiac sign of Aries on April 30th. That switch from dreamy Pisces to action-oriented Aries can almost be someone like waking up from a spell or someone waking up from having been hypnotized or a dream. They can all of a sudden be like, huh, what? Where am I? Gone is the confusion. Gone is the softness. Gone is the meandering quality. Gone is the swimming with the currents or going with the flow quality. Mars is in its own sign, which is Aries, and it is once more putting on that suit of armor and once more taking charge and going at things. So what you could see with Mars moving into Aries, if your chart is impacted by that, is all of a sudden shaking off of the delirium, of the spell you were under before, and taking action once more. That might be one of the results of this dramatic shift from Pisces to Aries. Or it could be a feeling of there are things that I learned before when Mars was moving through Pisces. There are things that I learned about being more compassionate, being strong in my forgiveness, being more feeling. There are things that I learned that I'm now going to try to apply to my life. I learned that might doesn't always make right, that maybe being sympathetic to someone whom you saw as adversarial, or even trying to see things from their point of view may be very helpful in trying to reach my goals or trying to get the results that I seek. Now I'm going to try to put this into practice in my life. Well, Mars going through Aries means automatically that the arena has become fired up. In other words, it may be that moment of like, we're not going to fight and everyone's going to get along. It's kind of like the end of West Side Story, if you remember. Tony comes in to tell the two feuding sides, that he's discovered love and that put down your blades and your guns and things like that and lets everyone get along. But he's walked into a feud that's going on between the Sharks and the Jets. And they're not going to listen to that. And it has calamitous results for poor Tony. But what I'm saying is that the things that you learned while Mars was in Pisces may be difficult to apply when Mars comes into Aries, that you may feel like you need to revert to strong arming, or you may need to, I took time off and this was lovely, but now I'm going back to my hectic, urgent life where I don't have time for anything. And I have to apply myself to my goals and my struggles and my challenges. And so that in itself is a kind of test. Did you learn anything when Mars was in Pisces? And can you take that Mars in Pisces and apply it to a more potentially combative Aries arena? Or are you going to throw off everything and say, I was tempted by someone's wile, I took off my armor, I lowered my guard, and now I'm going to wave the banner, sound the horn, pick up arms against, and go about it even more ferociously than I did before? This will be the big challenge. But it brings us back to the original theme that we began the month, which is finding your own way. Are there things that you have discovered in this month when you weren't able to take the direct approach, when you were sent down detours or byways and sideways, when you might have even found yourself lost at sea? Were the things that you discovered that were truer to the path that you wanted to take? This is something to keep in mind as Mars enters the zodiac sign of Aries. The signs that will be most affected will be Aries, Leo, Scorpio, and Sagittarius. I hope you enjoyed your Aries forecast. And I just wanted to say that I'm so glad we had this time together to laugh and to discuss a transit or two. It seems we just get started, and before you know it, comes the time we have to say so long. If you enjoyed what you saw, please press the like button. It helps more than you know. If you could subscribe, that would be wonderful. If you press the video on the left, that will take you into a deep dive into other episodes of Christopher Renstrom Astrology. I've had such a wonderful time visiting with you this week, and I can't wait to get together next time on Christopher Renstrom Astrology.